Well, good afternoon to everybody. Blessings on your life. It's another day that the Lord has made. It is hump day on this wonderful Wednesday. And I've got a very sensitive topic that I want to talk about. And I still don't know how I'm going to present this. I've been wrestling with this for the last 25 minutes. The Lord woke me up. Actually, I didn't sleep at all, really. Last night I had to get up and make my way to the dentist, and I got some work I'm having done at 7 o'clock this morning. So I got a little nap last night, but the Lord interrupted my sleep and began to talk to me. Um, we're dealing with this issue of health, and I told you 3 John. He challenges us and he prays for us. He wishes for us that we will be in good health, um, and that we would prosper as our soul prospers. The health that John is talking about is not limited to a physical condition, it is also a spiritual condition. And I can't stress that enough. And so when God was talking to me on last night, he says, Donnie, I am concerned about my people, about the mind of my people, the mental state, the soul, the heart, um, the place where we negotiate all our actions, our transactions, as it were. He says, I am concerned about that because I am seeing it as a wasteland, and God is moving, but I'm not so sure that the church is recognizing His move currently. And so he says, Donnie, I'm concerned about the health of my people. And he just began to talk to me about that. And so I raised myself up in the bed and I got my phone and I started to type things that he was saying. The Lord took me to this particular text in John 5:14. And I want to read this to you, and I want to highlight a couple of the scriptures here. In verse number 6, it says, when Jesus saw him lie, this was Jesus came, there was a man that was there that was lame, that he was impotent. This was a place where either it was a multitude of people that were impotent, they were lame, they were blind, they were withered, and that nature of issue that they had. So Jesus looks at him, and in verse 6, he says, at the latter part of that, he says, wilt thou be made whole? So he's asking him something with his condition because Jesus was there to help him. But in order to be helped, he had to get the man's consent. And so he wanted to know, he says, will you be whole? Do you want to be made whole? Now watch this. I'm going somewhere. And in verse number 8 of that same chapter, it says, Jesus saith unto him, rise up, take thy bed and walk. So this is another part. Now we go down a little bit. He asks him first, he says, do you really want this? Do you want to be made whole? Then he says, rise up, take thy bed. This is critical right here, because I'm getting ready to inform you. I'm getting ready to challenge you with something. And I've got to take us from 2,000 years ago to a Christianity or a Jesus that is current. So he says, rise up and take thy bed and walk. Now, on my whiteboard here, I've got thy bed. The first one is wilt thou, wilt thou. So that's the first thing that you need to ask yourself. The second thing is thy bed. You know what that bed is. And here it consists of, this bed is a body, a mind, and an environment. So everybody has your body, your mind, and your environment needs to be made whole and it needs to be healed. That is when he says, wilt thou. And then he goes down to take up thy bed that belongs to you. You know your particular condition. I don't know what your condition is, but you know. Then he goes down to verse number 14. In verse number 14, I just got it truncated right here. Go sin no more, less a worse thing. You can read this for yourself when you get a chance. It says, afterward, Jesus findeth him in the temple and saith unto him, behold, thou art made whole. So this means that Jesus did something for the man. Then he goes on, he says, sin no more, lest a worse thing come unto thee. Now, the thing that I want to point out here is that most of us feel that if Jesus heals us, that it's over. We're healed, we're delivered, we're set free. I want to challenge that mindset today because the issue is in the mind. The issue is in the bed. He says, take thy bed. And you have to understand the context in which this came from. There was a whole lot of things that was wrong with these people that were at the pool. They were wilt, they were blind, they were this, they were that. So he says, wilt thou? Then he says to take up thy bed, thy mind, thy body, and your environment. That means now that in order for me to walk in this with sustainability, that I am going to have to be transformed from the person that I am to the person that I need to be to maintain this. It's like maintenance, right? Jesus is saying, I'm going to come in and do something for you. I'm going to heal you. But after I heal you, he comes back and he says, now I see something. He says, now, as you journey, he says, go on. And he says, sin no more. That word sin is not relegated to a heart issue. It's not relegated to a heart issue. And I think this is something that we are missing today, is that we put everything into sin. Everything is about repentance. That wasn't what all Jesus was talking about. Also, what Jesus was talking about, he was talking about ignorance. He says, lest a worse thing come on you. Remember, it's a mind challenge as well. He says, so now ignorance is not just repentance. It's not that I went out and I stole and I shot somebody, or I'm a liar, or I'm a thief and all that. He says here, this is what I want you to understand. He says, but ignorance. He says, go and sin no more. Sin now is broadened into the ideology of ignorance, not just ignorance, disobedience. Disobedience. That means that I disobey something that I know to do, or I disobey something that somebody informs me of. Okay. So I'm walking now in a place of disobedience. Watch this. I'm going somewhere with this. Y'all gonna have to pray for me today. Slothfulness or laziness. He says, go, he says, and sin no more. Sin also is slothfulness or laziness to your being, to your person. That means that I refuse to read. I refuse to investigate. I refuse to discipline myself when I know that I should discipline myself. I refuse to refrain from certain activities, like perhaps eating. Perhaps I read an ingredient on a package or on a meat that I buy at the store. And when I read it, I understand what it is, but I don't inform myself. I don't go deep enough to know how that is going to affect me. Now, I need y'all to listen to me. I really do, because I'm really gonna go. I'm gonna go into a place today And once again, I'm going to be vulnerable and expose something here, but I'm setting you up because in this setup, it is going to frame where we are as a Christian people. And that is that we are still wanting Jesus to do everything for us. But the Lord was telling me on last night, he says, not so. He says, I'm not going to do it. He says, the reason why I'm not going to do it is because the difference between back then when he was doing all these miracles, and he'll still do miracles, but he says the difference now, he says technology and understanding and education has evolved to the point to where these things that my people, my body is having complications with, trouble with, the wellness and the wholeness and the health of my people, he says these things are readily available. He says all they have to do is go out and get it, go and study, go and apply themselves. He says the deliverance now is not in, going to a church and you have a deliverance service. This is what happened here at the Pool of Bethesda. So you go, it's a deliverance service there. Jesus, he's there, he's going to do a mass healing. So he does the healing, but he's also showing us something in the text. He says to go and take up your bed. First of all, he says, will you be made whole? Then he says, go and take up your bed. Your bed is your body, your mind, and your environment, because your body, mind, and environment has been conditioned. So here's a caveat. So I'm trying to break the mold that you feel that if God, or you believe that once God heals me or Jesus heals me, it's over. Then he goes back into verse number 14. He says, go and sin. I underscored, highlighted the word sin. And I differentiated from it's not about, I went out and I drank last night, I fornicated last night, I stole, all these things that we relegate sin to. When we read that text, we say, okay, you in sin. No, it's more than sin. It's also it to be ignorant of, because these are the things, again, I know I'm reiterating myself, but it's necessary because maybe you didn't hear it the first time. These are the things that are going to attack the mind. These are the things that are coming after the bloodline. Now, because I'm going here, Lord, you got to help me today. You really got to help me, because this is a testimony. This is a teaching. This is an expose. There's a lot of things here, but I'm only doing this because I really care and God cares, and he's using me now. He raised me up for such a time as this. If God needed this message to be preached, and I needed to preach it 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was a preacher, I could not have taught this message or delivered this message. As I spoke in last week in Luke 4:18, Jesus preached to the captives. He preached deliverance to set them free. But as I had an epiphany the other day, when I looked back and I looked in the mirror and I looked at myself, I said, what part of me that preach word that I did not allow to get down on the inside of me and do the work that needed to be done on the inside of me? And we all deal with these problems. So when we look at this, because we go somewhere today, it goes to the health of the mind. The health of the mind. Now, let me just, I'm still laying a foundation here before I get to my message title, before I explain it. Now, we have a thing here because when I was, how old was I? 40, I was early 40s, 41, somewhere in there, and it may have happened to my body even before then. When I was diagnosed with MS. One of the things that the doctors stressed to me, this is important piece of information that I'm going to give to you because it is going to earmark you in your situation. It's going to speak to just about any situation. And it is information, it is technology, right? It is understanding, it is knowing, it is taking up thy bed to know. It is coming into an understanding with your environment, coming into an understanding with your mental status, your to be astute, right? And to be made whole, to be healed, to be made whole is spirit, mind, and body. When we look at Daniel, Daniel was a man of excellence. Now, that is a picture and a shadow of how we should present ourselves or how we should be equipped as Christian people. But as all these things that I'm rolling out to you today, when you really look at us, the makeup, the dynamics of us, you don't see these attributes. And so this is what I'm coming after to challenge today. So when I first discovered that I had multiple sclerosis, one of the biggest things, and I went through a long journey, but one of the biggest things, they were trying to explain to me how my body worked. Because they said you have what is called an autoimmune deficiency. Then they would say to me, we don't know where these things come from. So in other words, what they was telling me is that our education at this point has stopped. It has stopped. But can I tell you something? Praise be to Jesus. My education, my knowledge has went beyond the doctors. I'm talking about those that specialize in the brain, neurological science, neurosurgeons, and all this. This is what I was under. This is what I am still under. Okay. And so I understand some things about myself that they don't understand because they limit it to a scientific approach. But now God has given me the wherewithal to understand the science along with the spiritual application and to blend them both together with an understanding and with a revelation. So here's what they said to me in short, and they wanted me to understand this. They said, because I kept going through what is called attacks or exacerbations. An exacerbation would mean that I would fold up. It means that, you know, my body would go one way, one finger would go this way, another finger would go that way, whatever, and it would do it spontaneously without me telling it to do it, without my brain, because my brain was going through a whirlwind. There was some electrical impulses. There was a fight on the battlefield, as it were, right? And so I was all confused. And when I say I was all confused, my makeup, my body, because I had an autoimmune deficiency. So what was happening was my body was attacking myself. Where their understanding stopped is they said, we don't know why this happens. Now, watch this. So they said to me, they said the T cells are the main players, my T cells in my body. He says they communicate to your immune system and they tell your immune system whether to fight or flight, or whether everything, whether it's okay or not. And he says, in your case, or it was a she says, in your case, she says, it's telling your immune system to fight. Here's the problem. She says, your immune system is attacking good cells. So it's going after something that should not have went after. So now I have all these cells that are set up like on a battlefield with muskets, machine guns, M60s, and all that. And they're going after something because they're saying that you are being attacked right now. It's a false attack. My body really wasn't being attacked, but because I was all out of kilter, I was all messed up. And this is where diabetes, this is where cancer, this is where a whole lot of things where it emanates from. It's a lie. See, we've been dealing with this way back since Adam and Eve and since Satan, right? He was the accuser of the brother, which he was a liar. Now y'all because I'm trying to give you something that I need to do a seminar on, and it would take an extended period of time. So he's a liar, and he presents things with us that is a lie. I told you last week, the last time I talked, that God said to the serpent, because of what he did to Eve, he says, because of this, he says, you will crawl on your belly, and he says, the dust of the earth will be your diet the rest of your life, the rest of your days, right? But what you got to understand is that we are made of the dust. And it's not just the dust, but when we are formed and God breathes into the nostrils of man and man becomes a living soul, then all organs, all the systems start to work. The body says that the science says, and the Bible, that life and death is not just in the tongue, but life scientifically and death is in the blood. Life and death is in the blood. It's also expressed like that in the Bible. Life and death is in the blood. So the enemy is definitely going to come after not just the dust, but the blood in the dust, because his objective is to kill you. That's his objective. His objective was to stop Jesus from ever coming. Why? Because his blood would never be contaminated. The blood of Adam and the blood of Eve got contaminated because of disobedience, because they ate of the forbidden tree. And a lot of people say that it was the fruit. The fruit wasn't something tangible. Now, I don't have time to explain this right now, but the fruit that was at the tree was Satan. Satan was calling from the tree. He called Eve from the tree. And what Eve bought into was what he had to offer, which was the fruit. That was the fruit. His words became the fruit. And so what was he saying? God was saying, do not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. In the day that you do, you shall surely die. Now, y'all stay with me. So when Satan called her, she ate what he offered her. That was the fruit. It wasn't an apple. It wasn't an orange. It wasn't a pear or any of these other fruits, because see, that's the mindset. And I'm going to show you something here in a few minutes. We got to get out of the mindset and understand this Jesus that we lift up, but we don't know. We got to get out of that. You've got to be reset. You've got to be recalibrated, and you've got to come into a saving knowledge, a new revelation of the word of God. Too many of us walking around with apples, thinking that the fruit, the tree is full of apples. You know why you doing that? Because they painted that picture for you. Somebody out there that was an artist, they painted that picture. You never had an experience with Jesus. You never had an experience with God. When God communed with Adam in the garden, Adam was so pure that his spirit could commune, because in Genesis 1 and 26 and 27, he understood and operated out of let us make man in our image and in our likeness. So when he did that, it was easy for Adam to communicate with God because he was in the image and the likeness of God. Yet he had a body. Okay. But the communion wasn't audible per se. But he knew why, because his spirit was attached to God's spirit, because he was God, image and likeness. He was God. Now we've grown away from that a big deal. Some of us are more are more sensitive than others. But for the most part, we don't know a whole lot about that. Now, so I said this about this MS piece, and I raised this point because here was the issue. And I've said this before on this platform. I said that I am healed, but I still have documented, I still have MS. I got an MRI not too long ago, did blood tests. Everything still shows up in my head. I still got holes in my head, right? I still, my spinal cord, as it relates to an MS situation is still severed. Right? So those electrical signals and all that stuff is still severed. Can I tell y'all something? When I get up, when I'm here, is you don't notice because you're not here with me. But I can talk to you all and I can flow. I leave here and I go have a conversation with somebody and they say, "What you talking about?" I mean, you know, I get a glitch over here, a glitch over there, all kind of stuff happen. Why? Because I'm assigned to this. So when I'm assigned to this, God gives me grace to go through it. So now I keep everything in my head. I tell y'all, I said, listen, if I was to go off of notes, I got a page here and a page here. This is what I wrote last night. Now, y'all ain't really saw me look down at that too much. Why? Because once I get going, I look down at that and it'll throw me off. Now, I do need to look at it from time to time. That's not my point. My point is to prove to you how God heals. But moreover, it's a continuation. Am I healed? Am I whole? Yes, I am. But I am also being healed and I am also being whole. Okay? That means that there's a work that continues in my body. This was what he was trying to say to the man at Bethesda. He says that I have healed you because you said that you wanted to be healed. But then he says, take up your bed, your body, your mind, and your environment. That is to understand what is going on around you. Around you. That's what the doctors were doing for me. They say, listen, we're trying to educate you because you need a different understanding. Now, was it fair to me that I had to go through all that stuff? Went through a season where for about 6 months, I couldn't walk. When I started to walk again, I had to do real little baby steps. I mean, if I could take you back in time, what you're looking at now, you wouldn't believe it. I was dying, okay, for all practical purposes. I remember distinctively going to work and everything was wobble, right? And I knew that my supervisor at the time that she couldn't cover for me no more. So I said, listen, I'm dying. I'm going in. I'm going to tell them this is my last day. I can't do it no more. And it wasn't fair for her to hide me. I was dying. The MS was taking over my body. Okay. And then God smiled on me. Right now, am I totally free? No, I'm not totally free. My left leg right now is I got problems as I'm sitting here right now. This is something that I deal with. It's a part of my life. But even being a part of my life, I'm healed. And I keep saying that I'm healed. Now, here's the issue. And this is the reason why God raised me up for such a time as this. Is healing in the cards for me completely? So this is what we don't know. And this is another reason why we are not so effective on the battlefield, is because we don't have a reminder. We don't have a remembrance. The Bible says, to whom much is forgiven, much thanks. In other words, when God has done a lot for an individual, they're always mindful. The other thing is who knows what type of person I would be if I was whole, and meaning that I had no residue. This is why Jacob walked with a limp. Y'all got to understand these stories. He said he wrestled with the angel. When they got finished with the whole thing, it says that Jacob walked with a limp. What was that? How do I know that I'm Jacob? Because I'm walking with a limp. Okay. There's a whole MS moves. It moves in my internal organs. It moves external. It just moves. It's all over the place. So I walk with a limp, but yet he's got me in a place where you can't see the smoke. Is that not a miracle? That's what I'm trying to tell you. That's the reason why I keep coming. See, people ask, I'm not coming to try to get 10,000, 100,000, a million views. I'm not trying to monetize. Why? Because this thing to me, I know what God has called me to. I know why I'm here. So there's an understanding. I got off on a little tangent here, but it's still necessary. Now watch this. The reason why I talked about the T cells and it being the primary player to the immune system is because here's what's two things that are happening here. One is it's called the eustress, which is stress. Eustress. It is a good stress. It comes from homeostasis. Okay, now I know I'm getting into a little something, and I can get into this because it's my life. People ask me, I remember when my mom was going to the hospital, she's had heart problems, all this stuff, and I would talk to the doctors, nursing home, hospital, and all. They say, how do you know systolic, diastolic pressure, all these different things about, your body, blood pressure and heart rate and this and that and hardening of the arteries and all that. How do I know all of it? I don't have to share everything. I know it because I lived it. That's how I know it all. So when I have people come and they get in my purview and they have this and they have that going on, and I sit back and I say, you talk to the choir. I know about that. It's a lot of stuff that I know about. I'm gonna get into this for a minute because from an autoimmune perspective and from a sickness perspective, I say, and I will continue to say, I don't know. It can always, now this is hyperbole, it can always be worse, but out of the bloodline, the worst of everything got dumped on me. The worst of everything. I had problems with all the internal organs, brain, heart, prostate, liver, kidneys, had problem with all that, had problem with the major organ, skin, eczema to the nth degree. Then had problems with what's the stuff you got with your hair loss, getting patches in your hair when your hair fall out, all that kind of stuff. I done had all that. So when I sat back and I say, listen, I know what I'm talking about because I've been spared, but I ain't been spared. But the reason why is because I am called to eradicate the curse from my bloodline. That's the reason why I'm here. That's the reason why all this happened to me. Now, homeostasis is a condition that brings about an equalization. So now homeostasis is a good type of stress. It is the big picture of stress. So you got eustress and you got distress. So distress puts you in fight or flight. And when it does that, your body goes into disarray. This is where the enemy comes in at, because he always wants you. I'm just using an educated example. I'm using a scientific, a medical, biological, physiological example, because this is what the enemy is doing to us in the spirit realm, but we don't understand it. So I'm painting a picture here that you might be able to link up with. But behind me, the backdrop is John 4:15. Is that what it was? John 5:14, 6 and 9. That is to get your mind together. It's a whole mental battle. Okay, so when we look at this whole thing, the distress now, you got two stresses. One is fight or flight, and the other one is to put you into, how do I say it? Eustress is a part of homeostasis, but it means now that you're being attacked to be well. Distress does not attack you to be well, it attacks you to die. So MS is designed from the enemy to continue to attack me to one day I fold to its demise. Its demise is that I am going to eat the dust and I'm going to attack the blood. The T cells and every other cell is inside the blood. And one day, in hopes, this is what the enemy, I hope to destroy you. The enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Okay? Y'all got to stay with me. I'm covering a lot of territory. Steal, kill, and destroy. So that's the bad side. But the good side of eustress, from a homeostasis standpoint, is to hit you hard, and then from there you bounce back and you're better. Let me give you an example of homeostasis and eustress. Eustress would be because I'm talking to the church right now. If I was talking to athletes, I would be saying a cold ice bath. When you been playing real hard, your body's on fire, you jump into an ice bath will shock your body. And it shocks your body to a place of repair. That's what it does. But I'm talking to church people, right, supposedly. So in the church, here's homeostasis or eustress for us, a fast. A fast now, what it does is it shocks the body. How does it shock the body? Because you don't want to go. Your body is saying, eat, 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 eat. You can't starve me. But when you go on a fast, you shock the body. And when you shock the body, if you stay disciplined, if you understand it and you stay focused on it, what will happen is your body starts to reset itself. It's resetting because out of all the junk, everything that you put into, it's put it into fight or flight. And the enemy wants you to do that. So he wants you to continue to eat at McDonald's because he knows that the food that you're getting at McDonald's, you don't know nothing about it. See, the Bible says that he does not want us to be ignorant. Don't be ignorant. Again, Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Now, you go to the marketplace and you buy beef or you buy pork. When you buy it, this is the way the world works. And a lot of us, because we Christians are the most uninformed people that I know. You'll go there and you don't know nothing about farming. You don't know what they do. You don't know nothing about antibiotics. You don't know none of that kind of stuff. But what you have to understand is that in order for them to get paid and to get paid top dollar comes by weight. And so what they do is they take the cows and they take the pigs and all the other animals. When you look at them, you say, man, that joker show is big. I was eating Kentucky Fried Chicken years back. I don't eat this stuff no more. But years back, I was eating it. And I said, man, this is the biggest wing that I have ever seen in my life. I mean, just big. The thing was about as big as a chicken. How did it get that big? It got that big because it was injected. It was injected. So they put steroids in it. They put antibiotics in it so it can keep it living. Do you know what happens after they kill that? They take the skin away, they cut it, make it look all pretty, and then you take it, you bring it home, it's all packaged, you put it in your frying pan or however you do it, it's still got all those steroids, it's still got all those antibiotics in it. So we look around and we say, why am I sick? Now because I'm still dealing with the health. I'm still dealing with our series. Okay. I'm still dealing with it. Bringing back health to the body, but for you to prosper as your soul prospers. So we still dealing with that. I'm just going round the mulberry tree a different way. So here it is, because we perish for lack of knowledge and understanding. You got beef, you got fish, and say, well, it's farm raised. Farm raised is the worst kind of fish that you can eat. You want to eat fish that is free, that roams, okay, that ain't caged. You got chickens that are caged. You don't want to eat that. Why? Because the master, the one that is sold out with mammon is money. I need more money. I need more money. So what am I going to do to these chickens? I'm going to make sure that these chickens grow up in a week, 2 weeks. They're going to be full grown, ready to go to the house. whatever they making them for. But that whole thing comes to you. What do they do to the ground? They killing the ground. Man, I wish I could talk to you, but this is one of the issues that the children of Israel went into Babylonian for 70 years for, because they didn't allow the ground to rest. So we taking all these different chemicals and this, that, and the other, and you putting this down on the ground and you saying, go graze, telling the cows and cattle, go graze. The world, everything has become corrupt. Now, this ain't what I'm here to talk about. I'm trying to get somewhere else. But it's all interwoven. So we got to be careful with this. So now, listen. Listen, I'm just going, let's talk for a minute. I want to talk from, hopefully I can do this in 10 minutes. I'm at 40 minutes now. I want to talk from the subject, altars of habit. If I don't finish this, I'll chime in on it the next time. I know Sunday I'm supposed to talk about thorns and thistles. But when God starts to talk to me so much that it's 100 messages run through my mind. I'm always getting a download. Altars of habits, or altar of habit. An altar of I don't know why. An altar of just because. Now, y'all don't see that on your screen. I just got for the title, Altar of Habits. But with that, as I continue to ruminate, to think about this, I said to myself, the Holy Spirit says, altars of I don't know why. And then altars of just because. And this is where we have relegated ourselves to. God help me, because I'm not going to be able to finish this. But I want to prick your interest. I may even come back later tonight and do it. So when we look at this right here, it's habits. I told y'all last week that altars are a place of sacrifice, offering, and belief. It is something that I have bought into. I put all my energy, all my mind, my heart into it. I believe in it. I erect it. I raise up an altar. I'm convicted by this altar, right? That's what an altar is. So we got an altar of habits. Now, the problem with us, and I want to give you my family, because there's a place in here where it's touchy, it's sensitive. Because now, like I said before, if you don't want to be, I'm gonna try to be discreet as I can. But if you are part of my story, at some point I'm gonna talk about you, whether it's now or later, because you're part of my life. But I'm not gonna talk about you in a way to where it's gonna make you look bad. But I'm gonna say things because I have to, right? So now we have these altars of habit. And a habit is, I'm just doing this over and over and over again without thinking about it. Now, altars, when we look back from the bloodline, because the enemy is coming after the bloodline, habits can be things that you do knowingly what is for, or unknowingly what is for. It's still going to have the same effect. Some of us say, well, because I didn't know. No, you can't get out of it because of ignorance. Even the day of judgment, you won't be able to get out of it saying that the gospel wasn't preached. Go to Romans chapter 1. He preached, he put it on your heart. There's something on your heart that points you to Jesus no matter what. He says there is no excuse. Okay, so you can't come and say that I didn't know. The issue is that we don't go after. So it falls under slothfulness, or it falls under laziness. It falls under not being connected to my environment. It falls under not wanting to study, not wanting to apply myself. That's your problem. So then we raise up altars of habit. The altars of habit, I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. And a caveat to that, and I don't know why. It's a habit. I don't know why I keep doing it. And then if you called on the carpet, and it's the other answer is just because. just because, now let me give you an example. And I heard this years ago. It was a story. I can relegate it to an African American family because I just can't. So they said, why is it that when you get a ham or you get a roast, you always cut the ends off? We call them the butts. You cut the ends off of it, and then you take it and you roast it. You do whatever you're gonna do to it, and nobody could give a good answer to why they do it. I mean, it's the same meat. If you go and you do a chemical analysis on, it's the same meat that's with the other part that ain't been cut off. So you cut this little piece off and you cut this little piece off and you throw it away. So they said, why do you do that? And the answer is, and I'm trying to get you to see something, it's habit. We are doing things even in the church, because I'm going to show you something here in a second. We're doing it based upon habit. We don't know why we do it. We don't have a good answer for it. Here's the answer that the woman gave. She said, I do it because I saw my mom do it. Then the mom was questioned. She said, I do it because I saw my mama do it. So now it's an issue of, it's an altar now. It's an altar. Everybody, because this is the way that you do it. When that's something that you believe in, something you're convicted by, all this, and you don't think about it no more, but it's just a part of your life, it's an altar. It's an altar. So you raise it up, you live by it, but you live by habits. Now, let me show you something. Behind me is 3 altars. It's 3 altars. The top altar there is an altar of a whole lot of stuff. And I want to show you this because back in the Bible days, we're used to an altar that the Lord tells Moses to build. That type of thing, or an altar that Moses that he put up. And so we've got this image in our head that this what an altar is. And so we sacrifice a lamb, we sacrifice a goat, we sacrifice a bull, and we put fire to it. Oh no, today an altar is your heart. You don't sacrifice bulls and goats and turtle doves and all that stuff. You don't do that now. You don't build altars. You build altars in your heart. So when we look at this, we got altars here that are before us, and the top altar is an altar of a smorgasbord of things. My point of putting this before you is that we have raised up altars that have a whole lot of stuff attached to it. And we don't even know what all it is. It's just habit. It's just something that we saw done. It's just something that we believe in. It's something that makes us feel better. We don't know why we do what we do. The second one down is an altar that we are affiliated with. We are familiar with. It's a church altar. So we can look at that in our modern day understanding. We look at that and we say that's an altar. All these altars are altars, but they're not the altars that I'm going after today. The altar that I'm going after is an altar in the heart. Then this bottom altar is a altar where there was a loved one. And a lot of times we raise up altars based on, my cousin died, my uncle died, somebody in the family, whatever it is, and they become altars to us. That means that you never let them rest. In your heart, there is some good. I ain't saying to strip away the good, but what I'm saying is we got to be real careful now, because we in a day and age where we're not seeing power and authority manifested, because we got these altars that are idols. We've got people that are altars, and no longer is God the altar of your heart. So it's becoming very problematic. Now, I said something, and I'm gonna close it right here, because this is where the testimony starts, and I'm gonna get into some stuff that's gonna be very sensitive. I talked about my autoimmune deficiency, which is MS. So I've got an altar from my mom, my dad, and my ancestors. One of the altars that, and y'all heard me talk about my dad a lot, and in a negative sense and in a positive sense. And I've talked about my mom in a negative sense and in a positive sense. One thing that I really want you to capture here is learn from your bloodline. Every name that's attached to a bloodline, regardless to whether you're a doctor, lawyer, a dentist, a pilot, a preacher, whatever you come from, is not all of it is that it's not flawed. Some of the stuff and most of it is flawed. This is the reason why God told Moses, tell the children in Exodus 12:3 to take a lamb. The lamb is Jesus. Take a lamb according to their fathers. Why did he say? Because something about your father's house that needs to be saved, that needs to be delivered, that needs to be set free. But it's according to your father's house. There's something wrong with everybody's father's house. Now, I'm not saying that it ain't nothing good, but there's something wrong. And even with the good, if you esteem the good to the point to where you can't, that is just you eat it and eat it, that's a flaw. That's sin. That's idolatry. Because a lot of times we live in this space where that I'm a Pinkett. That's just the name I made up. I don't know no Pinketts. And the Pinketts are wealthy people. The Pinketts are very educated people. The Pinketts are very influential people. And so when you like that, you can't do any wrong. And to God, you can't bring that into heaven, because that's the spirit of pride. You're too prideful. It's something wrong with each and every one of us. We just got to balance it. Homeostasis. Balance. Don't go too far to the left. Don't go too far to the right. This is what's happening with the Democrats and the Republicans. They're going deep blue, deep red. Bring that thing back in a little bit so we can balance this out, because ain't neither one of y'all right. Don't give homage to Saul. King Saul, they said, we want a king. We want a king. And they felt that the king would be the answer to all their problems. That was idolatry. That's where they messed up at. And it's the same thing that we're doing with Biden. It's the same thing we're doing with Trump. It's the same thing with Ukraine doing with the little president that's over there, and Putin over in Russia. All this, it's relegated to a man. A man save us. Can't. You got to put your hope in God. If God don't keep the city will not be kept. Now, I've got a situation because the enemy is after the bloodline. And so on my mom's side, I brought up the whole thing about MS is because one of the issues and what the enemy has targeted is the bloodline attacking the autoimmune system. That is the system that guards me against all outside attacks. It protects me so it don't come in. Just so happened to be that my system was weaker than everybody else's. So I end up getting all kind of stuff, autoimmune deficiencies. I got about 6 or 7 of them. Hear what I'm saying to you? Because a lot of y'all got 1 or 2. You got diabetes, you got arthritis. All those are, those are autoimmune deficiencies, right? But you got 1 or 2. But I'm trying to help you to understand where they come from and how to educate yourself. I won't get to the educated part today. That's what I want to get to, because I want to show you how you come out of it. But I've given you some of it. How you come out of it is to be educated, because Jesus ain't just touching people and letting them just go free and you can go and do whatever you want to do. Go on all those days. So go to church, get delivered, and let them touch you and get up and walk, throw the cane away, throw the wheelchair away, give you 6 months, and you will be right back with a cane and a wheelchair and all that. if you don't take up your bed. The issue is with knowledge, understanding, and in wisdom. And a lot of this is in our diets. I want to get to that. Thorns and thistles, thorns and thistles. It's in our diet. Some of it is that you're going to be whole or healed and you're going to function and you still going to have the limp, but you still going to be whole. You still going to live to 100 years old. You still going to be able to act like you 35 and all this stuff, but you got this condition, but you still whole, you still heal. Why? Because you're walking in the fullness of God, what he wants you to. And he's allowing this. This is what happened with Paul. He says, take this thorn away from me. He says, I prayed about it 3 times. God said, I can't take that thorn away from you. My grace. So now I'm walking in grace and in mercy. They follow me. They're on either side of me, goodness and mercy. And grace, I'm overshadowed by grace. That's what I walk in. And he says, that's sufficient. Why? Because he knows me. Now, there's a place here in this, what the Lord was showing me last night, and I want to get to it, because a lot of us, we think that two things here. One is that all these conditions that I got it mainly from my mom's side. And I'll discuss my mom's side more because my sister had autoimmune deficiencies, right? But they also dealt in witchcraft, which was an altar that's got to be, and when I say witchcraft, I'm talking about white witchcraft. I don't mean blatant. My mom was a devout saint, okay? She was real. The thing, and my grandmother was real, and my sister was real. But she was touched, she was exposed to something without knowledge early on as coming into the first stages of Christianity or before they got saved. See, that's another thing. Just because you get saved, if you going to tarot cards or you going and you sipping on coffee and at the end of it, it's got little granules in it and they tell a story about your life. If you did that for 20 years and you attach yourself to an altar, you attach yourself to a demon, you attach yourself to the dark world, well, somebody got to break that. Okay? So you can get saved, but getting saved ain't enough. Now you got to get saved and you got to expose yourself to knowledge and understanding. A lot of the people, when I was growing up in the old church, is what we call it, good people, but they were good people that were defeated. A lot of them right now, when I think back, they died before their time. They died from different type of diseases, all that stuff. And I'm talking about the real deal, but they didn't know certain things. And there's things that when I expire, that it's like, cause see, you build upon it. So the things that they didn't know, I know, and I'm trying to recover my folks from the things that we missed or what they missed. And I'm saying, listen, don't be ignorant of Satan's devices. So he comes around the corner. He comes to steal, kill, and destroy. If he can keep us in dark, the John 1, somewhere in there, the light came, I forget exactly how it goes, I'm paraphrasing, and the darkness comprehended it not. So if darkness is your enemy, darkness means I don't know. I don't comprehend it. The enemy wants you to stay in darkness. But I'm trying to raise light because he can't compete in light. So don't get mad. Give me time. You know, this everything, the algorithms and all this stuff is all changed. So what y'all say is rush him off, get him off. What are you talking about? Because, you know, I was listening to a preacher the other day and somebody posted it and the preacher up there, all that stuff. And they still doing all that stuff. And I looked at all the people, all that stuff. It made me sick now. Because I know from an audit standpoint, all I got to do is go in the house with the folks and spend a week with them. and I can see the defeat. I don't mean that carte blanche. I don't mean to attack their Christianity, their walk with Jesus. But what I see, what I have audited, okay, the facts of the matter is that we are not representing Jesus Christ. That's a fact, Jack. If that is a fact, then why not? So that don't work. That don't work. That don't get you healed, delivered, and set free the way that you need to. A long line for healing is good, but it don't work. Prayer without an understanding is good, but without the understanding, you need more. You need more than just prayer. You need more than just salvation. This is what God is. This is where he's at now. He's introducing himself to us. It's a God or a Jesus that we know not. The Jesus that you don't know, but you need to know. Maybe I'll come back and I'll deal with this thing because, see, a lot of y'all don't understand. There's a part of my life where it was snatched from me. I got a divorce. I'll say this. I got a divorce, and in the beginning, it was supposed to be for life. But in the beginning, Adam and Eve were not limited to in a day. A day is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. But because of how evolution, how they evolved, Eve saw something, and her ambition went after something that God told her not to. Now, listen, I'm at fault. I can talk about me. I'm at fault. We started to go in different directions. So even though when we parlay that, and a lot of y'all still in a situation and you hate one another, and you in that situation because the church then told y'all that God don't want none of y'all to be separated, and that is true. But it's got to be true with an understanding. With an understanding. If you have two people and one goes to the east, the other one goes to the west, they divided. How can two walk together unless they agree? That's the reason why the Bible says don't be unequally yoked. And you can become unequally yoked. You can be torn apart based upon what you start to, your altars that you start to raise, things that you start to be convicted by. You see what I'm saying? Now, I'm just giving you a little piece. So at the end of the day, the split was bad, but ultimately it was good. When the flood came, the flood destroyed all humanity. It was very bad. But after that, 8 people were saved and the world was reconstructed again in terms of humanity. And Jesus came through that. So it ended up being very good. That's the reason why all things work together for the good of them that love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. Romans 8:38 or something like that. So you got to see the bigger picture. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all about Trump and about Musk and about all this stuff. He ain't right, but it ain't about him being right. It's about him being in the place to get something done in the earth that God wants to have done. And when that happens in the moment, we don't understand it. When I was going through a divorce, when it first happened, I didn't understand it. I was crying. I was sick. I was busted. Everything was messed up. I was losing everything. When the people was drowning, they didn't understand, why is my life being taken away from me? It was because the bigger picture was the world had become contaminated by the fallen angels. It had become contaminated, and they were going in and they were having sex with humans. And so they were impregnated. In other words, they were spreading the seed. God was saying, if I don't stop this, the whole world will be contaminated by the seed of the serpent. And if that happens, then I can't get my will, my agenda, my objective in the earth. So what do? I wipe all this out. And when God is wiping things out, it don't feel good. That's the reason why this reset that we going, it don't feel good. Why the stock market is bumping up and down. Why he messing with people that's on Medicare, Medicaid, and welfare and at the border and all this stuff. It don't feel good. But there's a bigger picture. And so you have to come into a saving now. What is going on that I don't understand? What is going on that I don't see? This is the reason why I said that with my doctor, my my MS doctor, she's a neurosurgeon. Used to be, she passed away, but used to be, where her understanding, her knowledge, all those years of education and her specialty, it stopped. But when hers stopped, when she was telling me that way back then, I was limited to what she knew because I didn't know what I know now. This is what I'm trying to tell y'all. It's an understanding. You got to be woke. You got to wake up. Y'all talking about woke? Yeah, this is being woke. So you got to wake up because there's more to this than what we see, more than what meets the eye, more than what we believe in, more than what we arguing and we fighting about. It's bigger than this. Jesus is soon to return. So prophecy, some prophecy can't be abated. You can't pray it away. It's going to happen whether we like it or not. It's going to happen. And this is kind of what we moving into, we diving into. And how does it look right now? Chaotic. But chaos is the best thing for us right now. And is it going to get worse? Like the old folks say, country folk, it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Listen, I got to stop right there. I got so much to give to you. I hope this has been a blessing to you. I want you to share with a neighbor, friend, or an enemy. I am Dr. Donnie Eatman, and I am the face of Face to Face. I want you to go in Jesus, to go in God. I just got a cramp. I just got a cramp. I want you to go in Jesus, go in God, and he's going to go with you, go in his love and his might, his goodness. But most of all, I want you to go in God's grace. In Jesus' name. Until we meet again, be blessed. Have a wonderful day. Shalom. Peace be upon you.